I just got back from Scotland, so we're gonna drink some scotch now.
Ooh. I'm Max.
And I'm Jenna. And
welcome to the Sons of Vancouver Whiskey channel.
James isn't here, so we're drinking some beers.
Ah, boss is away. Cheers.
And boss is gonna love that.
So, I was lucky enough to win a trip to the UK, compliments of Whitley Neal. They took me on a tour. It was a really nice time. Spent a few days in London, and then we went up to Scotland. Went to Edinburgh, went to Glasgow, and also went up to Speyside for a day. If you live in BC or Canada at all, you know that our selection of alcohol isn't the best.
No.
Well, Canadian rules.
We don't get a lot of rare releases when it comes to whiskey. We get very few bottles of things that are really great, and a lot of it is sold by like way of either standing in line or like a lottery sometimes. So going to places like that, you get the opportunity to buy some stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to buy if you can bring it back with you and fit it in your suitcase. So I brought a bunch of whiskey back, and Max gets to drink it with me. So we're gonna start with the Fettercairn.
This one is available in Canada, although somewhat difficult to find.
The 12-year, you can sometimes find the 16-year, you can sometimes find the 18-year. Fettercairn is a super cool distillery. It's kind of like middle of the road in terms of size. So like they're small enough where they can still do really cool stuff, but big enough where, you know, they're distributed all around the world. So they just launched in Canada like last year, and Andy, who comes on our channel sometimes, does work for them.
My name's Andy.
And so that's how I found out about them. I was lucky enough to go on like a really intense tour with Stewart Walker, their distillery manager. Took us all around the distillery, let us taste some stuff, and I brought a bottle back with me. So this is their Warehouse 14 batch number 1. So they started doing their Warehouse series bottles. I believe they've come out with Warehouse 2 and then now Warehouse 14. And it's basically like they just want to show how different their whiskey tastes depending on which warehouse it's out of. So we're basically gonna like try these two. This is the one that you can get in stores. This is the one that I brought back with me. This guy's been in 2 different types of ex-bourbon barrels and then finished in beer casks.
Ooh.
This one I think is just ex-bourbon, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, why don't we get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Fettercairn, one thing that I love about them is they have a really cool still. We all know what a pot still is. It's got like a copper helmet, no rectification, so very little separation of heads and tails.
The longer the neck, the more interaction the metal will have with the atmosphere outside the still. So it'll create more cooling and more reflux inside the still, creating a cleaner and cleaner spirit.
Yeah, so Fettercairn has a very cool one in that like on their helmet, they have a exterior cooling jacket. So they have like cold water that's like piped in from the creek outside and runs down the outside of the metal and provides some condensing to sort of create some rectification in that shorter space. So like, you know, obviously not like a column still, but it's going to give you a little bit more separation of your cuts. And so it makes for like very like tropical tasting notes out of their scotch. It's very cool.
We have the classic here in the small glass, and then the large glass has the Warehouse series.
Pinky's out.
Pinky's out.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So right off the bat, there's a much like juicier nose from the 12-year.
I agree.
I think that's that like signature tropical flavor that comes out of their spirit still. It's got like a very like pineapple-y, tropical, maybe even like mango-y sort of feel.
Yeah, it's quite accessible, but still has a great deal of complexity. I think it's a really cool scotch for people to get into because it's not a peated scotch. It's not very much punch you in the face, but also isn't really very boring either. Like you do have a few layers of flavor. There easier flavors, but I don't mean to take that away from them in any way. It's still a layered and complex beverage.
Yeah, it's really nice and accessible without being too simplistic, I think.
On the other hand,
moving to the Warehouse 14, this one's really cool. The beer finish adds like a layer of, it's not peat, but like it sort of acts like that. There's a little bit of like minerality and like,
it's like a surprising amount of body, which you don't normally associate with distilled spirits. I think.
I don't know if it's like the hops or what, but like there's somewhat of a, I almost want to say like graveliness to it, or like rockiness to it. It's really nice.
Yeah, and it does, like, it reminds me of like the foam of a beer. If any way to say that it was like a beer, it doesn't taste like beer in any way, shape, or form, but there's an essence and kind of a texture that reminds you of like the foam off a stout or something. And it kind of mutes the juicier notes of the 12-year. And while they're still there, it spreads it out and allows you to appreciate a few other elements that are going on in there. So quite fun.
Totally.
Quite fun. One, it's worth mentioning too that this is a 50% ABV whiskey, or 51.2, and this is a 40% here. And it's kind of interesting to see the juice come out in the lower ABV.
Fettercairn, in my opinion, has the best branding.
Yes.
I don't know how no one in Scotland has thought of using the unicorn as their mascot, but.
Unicorn.
Moving on to the Talisker. I was very excited to find this bottle of Talisker. So it's a 2020 special edition cask strength Caribbean cask whiskey. So we've got the Talisker 10-year here to compare it to. So this one's like a base Talisker, still, a decently expensive bottle in British Columbia.
About $100.
Beautiful dram for sure. The Talisker special edition, like you'd never find it here. If that came here, people would buy it all up right away. And like this was just sitting at a whiskey store.
Talisker is from the Isle of Skye, is that correct? And is known for a pretty complex smoky flavor. And we'll see what we enjoy here.
I really love whiskey from that region because it's more accessible than an Islay whiskey, but still very peated. I have never been like a huge fan of peat, and this I find really balances, like you still get the maltiness, you still really are tasting the grain there and the other character, but like the peat is enhancing rather than just like sort of covering everything and like punching you in the face.
So here we have the 10-year in the wider glass and the 8 special barrel in the stemmed glassware. And cheers. Yeah, Talisker has a really big nose right off the hop. It's quite distinctive. But it still has a lot of depth and complexity that isn't like, I love an Islay, but it is quite ham-fisted in the way it delivers, whereas Talisker has that same sort of intensity, but a little bit more depth. Talisker's
tagline, I believe, is made by the sea, and I think there isn't like a better tagline for a whiskey like this. Like you smell it and you feel like you can smell like the ocean in it. Like there has to be some sort of interaction that happens with the casks and the sea air or something like that.
There's a note on the back of this 8-year here that says the flavors of dry seaweed and warm sand on a smoky barbecue. And
Max really liked that.
I like that one. It speaks to me.
It's what dreams are made of.
So I'll say like nose beautiful on the 10-year. This is cask strength, and this one is 45.8%. So this one I think is 57 or something like that.
Yes.
Beautiful nose, beautiful palate. I will say my one critique of this is that it's a bit thin. That like you look for some body that's not really there, and it makes your finish sort of go down at the end rather than like.
Yeah,
coasting.
It does kind of just leave you just with the smoke flavor after it dries in your mouth. What the 8-year adds to it And I would say, to me, I think it's a more significant difference in product than it is between the Fettercairn. But what I really like about this is that there's a ton of spices on the rum cask. You get like a pepperiness and like allspice and chilies. That's like really satisfying.
It's so saline and so medicinal, like that iodine sort of like Band-Aid, and not in a bad way. It's like it comes out like a brine almost, or something like that.
Yeah.
I will say the rum cask was lost on me a little bit. Like I feel like that could have even not been there. It could have just been like a straight cask strength, and it would have been still banging. Because I look for the rum cask and I don't really find it in this whiskey, especially now that we've compared it to the other one. Like I still don't really see where it is, unless it's just like a rum cask that's very like spice forward or something like that. Like there's no fruitiness, there's no grassiness that I'd look for out of a rum cask.
The big difference is the spice load. Like, this is sweet and heathery and salty, and this is those things, but the sweetness is dulled, and what you get is a almost rye-like spiciness that's quite fun. And it is hard to represent that as like as a rum cask, because usually you think you associate that with a sweetness and like an oiliness. And this is spicy, but I certainly wouldn't be complaining about that, because it's it also, one of the things I really enjoy about this one is as it dries in your mouth, it leaves you with an extremely pleasant flavor, like a dark chocolate sort of thing, really lingers with you.
Yeah, I would say like 9 out of 10 that one. It's like
this is a winner.
Whiskey.
Wish it was around for you guys to try too.
Yeah, both of these are buys. I've heard that there's maybe a chance that this one will come here. If it does, definitely a buy. Yeah. If you ever see a bottle of this, pick it up. It's definitely worth your money.
Moreover, Talisker itself is an excellent thing if you're looking out to spoil yourself with a bottle, and you haven't tried it. It's fantastic. Even like whatever your base expression or whatever else they're offering, it's a really original flavor, and we highly recommend it.
Yeah, cool. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Thanks very much for watching. Bye.
Bye.